Okay, thanks everyone for joining. So today for the PTG Eventlet, I will start by doing a retrospective for Flamingo. So the first thing is about the Eventlet statute. So during the past few months, we made some change to support Python 3.14. We didn't observe problem for now, but I think we will slowly observe things that need to be updated in the coming weeks when we will start to using it more deeply. The next thing is about Oslo services. So you slowly all noticed that Oslo services reach a point of the migration where the stream backend is almost okay, and now Daniel is working on the fork versus multiprocessing feature to enhance Oslo services and to better support especially SQL Alchemy. And we observed recently a problem on Cinder about forking versus multiprocessing. Concerning OpenStack, so this series was a good series. We made great progress. We almost migrated 19 projects over the 99 initially detected. We observed the migration of Ironic, Mistral, 8, Barbican, Neutron is mainly migrated. Nova made really good progress. And we also have 32 other projects in progress currently. So I just count the Eventlet occurrence in the use in runtimes, not in doc or test. So now concerning Gazpacho, the Gazpacho series will be focused on starting new project, but for no didn't show progress. I was thinking about Blazar, Venus, Taker, Mazakari, Zune. Concerning myself, I started to work on the migration of Mazakari. I made good progress, but I still have some unit tests hanging. I need to dig to see why it happened. For the project that almost finished their migration or already finished, that's the right time to clean up your bird tracker. If you, I think you surely have issue or tickets that are related to Eventlet. So as your project is now migrated, I think we have to see if we want to close them or if you want to keep them for maybe a stable branch. I don't know. Also for projects that almost finished their migration, we have to implement hacking rules to ensure that we didn't reintroduce Eventlet and that we don't have a regression. Initially, I started to propose a couple of patch over the various projects to implement one by one the hacking rules, but finally, Takashi advised me to maybe create a hacking rule at the hacking level. A rule that it is disabled by default, that can be turned on the project that reach the end of their migration. So this is what I've done. And I'm waiting for review for the patch at the hacking level. It will also, we will have also to continue the ongoing migration. I think about Nova, I think about Cinder, I think about Swift, etc., etc. And I identified a couple of low-hanging fruits: Cyborg, Magnum, Vitrage. So I think these projects are easy to migrate, but potentially I'm not sure if they are actively maintained, and I think we have to see with the TC member what we want to achieve. If we want to propose patch, to force them, etc., etc. So I think I made my part of the presentation. Gibby, you put a note about Nova and hacking rules. So if you want to
Yeah,
give
just a note that we will keep our own for a while because Nova is not yet removed all the Eventlet imports, but we are already blocking some of the Eventlet imports we get rid of, like importing some of our timeout or event from Eventlet. So we will have a special rule for a while. When we removed all of them, we will switch to the common rule, of course.
Okay, good to note. Good point. Thanks. So someone marked that Venus Vitrage are inactive, so that's a good point. So we don't have to migrate them. Does anybody else have something that you want to bring today?
So I can give like a short update on the Swift status. We just had a session before this one within the Swift PTG sessions discussing eventlet removal. There are a couple of, well, there is one POC actually written by me, patches. What we're looking for next is to do some benchmarking to decide which strategy we're going to with forward. And actually that will probably happen within like the next 3 weeks. So this is in progress. And we expect a couple of more updates within, well, many more updates actually within this cycle. And if there are any questions regarding Eventlet, you can always ping me as well directly.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Just a question for Nova. What will be your... So you spend the entire cycle working on a specific part of Nova. Do you have the new area that you want to focus on during Flamingo, Gazpacho?
Yeah, we have a long list of remaining work items. The major one is switching Nova Compute over to threading, or the option to switch over Nova Compute to threading. But also we also want to do some benchmarking, and there are smaller things to tackle. We haven't yet settled on the order of execution. We will have a session in the Nova room, or in our room, just after this call, discussing the prioritization of the remaining items. So I can report back later, but not yet, about the plans.
And we have the proxies yet to do, right?
Yes, we have all the proxies, and Nova Compute is remaining. And we have unit test and function test environment to switch over. And we want to benchmark and a couple of CI related works as well. So that's basically the remaining work.
Perfect. In all the case, do not hesitate to update this Etherpad later once you will have a better overview, or maybe through your mailing list update.
Sure, I can do that.
Thanks. I don't have more to bring today.
Yeah, I had a question. So I think you said the fork versus multiprocessing work was discussed, and this is changes. There are changes in Oslo service to be expected to support fork multiprocessing. So is there a bug, or is there some sort of a spec or something that's going to be written for it?
Yes, initially we started the discussion on the Eventlet side with Itamar, my commander, and from there I created a spec downstream on our Red Hat Jira. And weeks ago, Cinder reported a bug just related to that. So Daniel already started to propose patch. So normally the Cinder bug will disappear in the coming weeks, months, depending on when we merge the patch and when we release the new version of Oslo services. So these topics for now seems under control.
Yeah, I'm working on that for Cinder, and the case there was for Cinder multi-backend, where we currently spin up multiple Oslo services. So Gotham, I think that Manila is going to have the same exact issue that I ran into in Cinder with regards to that, and will be dependent on that same fix for the fork versus multiprocessing work.
Okay, thanks.
I have something that I can talk about if we want to fill some time here. I don't actually want to talk about it, but Cyril wants me to talk about it. And even though Cyril could stand up here and say, hey, why don't we talk about X? He wants me to do it. So this is pretty glance specific, I think, but it might have some overlap with Oslo, and maybe Hervé, you know what Oslo's plan is here, but we were thinking about ways that we can make Glance installable without Eventlet in an environment where we're trying to test it with no Eventlet support. It's one thing to say, Eventlet is disabled, so none of the Eventlet code should be being used. But it's still in our VM, and it's still, imported into our code, and maybe we have places where we're touching it and we don't expect. So I was thinking that for Glance, given how simple it is, it might be reasonable to basically cleave off all of the places that we talk to Eventlet into a shim, and put that shim into an extra package, so a Glance extra package, where if you install Glance by default, you don't get the Eventlet support, so to speak. You don't get Eventlet in your dependency list, and you don't get that shim layer installed. And without the shim layer, Glance, basically has no path to Eventlet, because the shim isn't there, and we have everywhere that we need to do Eventlet things today. If Eventlet is installed, we have a null shim basically, and if you install Glance Eventlet, extra package with pip, you get the shim, you get the dependency, and then we have the code there to actually interface with Eventlet. And if we did that, that would allow us to basically install Glance completely Eventlet free in a VM for testing, proving that we're not touching Eventlet support and keeping it completely clean. And then when we stop wanting to support Eventlet, we can just remove that extra package basically, and everything else would be the same. So I don't know what the Oslo packages are thinking about doing, but from a Glance store library perspective and Glance itself, I think that would be pretty reasonable, and it seems like that might apply to other Oslo packages as well.
Your idea seems interesting, as far as I can see. I think we have to check if Oslo import require Eventlet in its own requirements. Maybe that will cause a problem or interference. The idea seems interesting. So, if I correctly understand, I suppose that you will enable the Eventlet mode if you detect that Eventlet is installed in the environment. That's exact?
No, that's what we're doing right now, kind of. What I want to do is I want to make it so that if you just install the Glance package without the Eventlet support, you get no Glance code installed that has any import Eventlet anywhere. And we just define a shim, a set of interfaces of things that we might want to do against Eventlet if it was installed, and we have a null version of that in Glance itself. That is the default. That is basically just passed through for all of these things. And if you install that extra package, it will install an extra piece of Python code that actually calls into Eventlet, does the import, does everything that we're basically doing today, but only in that shim code. And so by separating it into a Python extra package, we can also separate the dependency as well as provide that kind of air gap, meaning if you don't install that package, there's no import to Eventlet. We can't even check if Eventlet is installed. We can't check if it's monkey patched. We don't care. Everything is going to assume no Eventlet support. And that would mean that like if we did this, we could install Glance into a VM with no Eventlet package at all, like in a week. And it would just provide us a very clean seam between an Eventlet supporting and an Eventlet non-supporting environment.
Okay, I better understand. Sean?
Yeah, so just to build on that, I don't know if this is still functional, but DevStack DevStack by default is using a single shared global VM, but it used to support the ability to enable individual projects to be installed in their own virtual environment as well via an additional effective environment variable you set in the local.conf. So one way to potentially test this on the Glance job side is you might be able to enable that support so that Glance itself is installed separately into its own VM without sharing the global VM.
So I didn't think that we had that support anymore. You think that's still there?
I think it's still there, but I don't think it's used in any job, so I don't know if it still works. So I think that might, yeah.
I thought that kind of went away when I thought that pieces of that got used to create the global VM that we know today, and that's not actually addressable anymore. And I'm saying that very strenuously because Cyril suggested that we do that, and I was adamant that it was not possible. So I really want it to not be possible because I don't like it when Cyril is right about stuff. But,
okay, so I was basically asking, have you checked if that still works? Because that was the first thing that came to my mind is if Nova is currently installing Eventlet that's in the same global VM, it's obviously not going to work, right?
No.
We have,
that will be fine. The reason for putting it in an extra package like this is specifically so that so that we're kind of like air gapped, right? Like even if Eventlet is installed in our environment, but we do not install any code that lets us reach Eventlet, then we have a certain amount of insulation between us and the Eventlet that's there. It also means that we could be installed in an environment that doesn't have Eventlet at all.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If I was thinking that what we might want to do DevStack wise is instead of trying to do per package VMs, I was thinking we might want to have two globals, which is an Eventlet having and an Eventlet not having VM where we bar it, right? And that would allow us to basically kind of have a neat sorting between like, okay, we're going to mark Glance as no Eventlet. That means Glance gets installed in the non-Eventlet VM, and it's very easy to see like who's in which VM. Are you in the non-Eventlet or the Eventlet having VM? And like it would be a big ceremonial, we're moving Nova to the non-Eventlet VM when it's ready, or whatever,
Sure.
right?
So I had kind of three small related questions. So one was, how do you think this is going to work with co-installability? Which you've kind of just answered by that, saying that you've got one VM where you've got everything that needs Eventlet, and one VM for everything that's not, so you can still do some level of testing to make sure that we're using the same requirements. The other two questions I had was, do you think it's a good idea if we were to standardize on an extra for all of the repositories where we just set it is Eventlet, basically? So you can do Nova or Nova square brackets Eventlet if you want Nova with Eventlet. And the last bit is, have you looked at PBR and how it supports doing multiple Python modules from within the same repo? Is that the direction you're thinking, or are you thinking a separate actual repo for this as well, so we keep one package per repo?
No, I was thinking extra package, Python extra package. So it'd be just in Glance's setup config.
Yeah, so you'll still have Glance as a single repo. It's just now producing two Python modules. One is Glance and one is Glance Eventlet Gym, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, it's not really separate modules, right? It's like, well,
you're talking about not having the Glance code that uses Eventlet in there either. So I'm wondering how you're going to do that separation at the package level, the Python package level.
If I do an extra package, like it works just like our Nova PowerPC module used to work, right?
So extras are for extra dependencies, not for shipping extra optional pieces of code in setup config.
I think you can not install the Python file, right?
I'm not sure. That's not how I understood how extras worked, but maybe that is. I thought you actually had to declare a separate package to have that code split out of the main deliverable.
I didn't think so. But
I was actually looking into extras recently, and I wanted to achieve something like you was describing, Dan, to like have like this extra and not install like Python code, and I was not able to find any way except like modify setup.pu and put some logic in there.
Did we lose Dimitri?
No, we're hearing him. Okay. I guess I'll have to look. I thought that was one of the whole points of doing that thing, because I thought that people use that mechanism to install Stevedore plugins, which is how they decide whether that's installed or not. So yeah, I'll have to go look at it, I guess. I thought that, yeah, I thought that's how that worked.
Yeah, I was absolutely sure it works this way until I started trying to do that. But I mean, maybe I haven't found something. So
is that
really,
I wonder, is that a PBR restriction, maybe?
No, I wasn't using PBR. It was a completely like separate Pocket project, and I ended up like just doing some logic in main, basically in main PU, and doing like try import and accept like yeah, fail with error message or something.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, I guess I'll have to go look and see. Maybe I'm just, well, you obviously thought it worked that way too, so I'm not totally crazy. So yeah, maybe that won't be a thing, but anyway, even though Sean's gone, to address the co-installability thing, it doesn't. The whole point of it is that it doesn't affect co-installability, because it just wouldn't, like, other packages can have Eventlet. It wouldn't be me barring Eventlet from being in the VM. It would just remove my ability to reach it. You wouldn't install a piece of code that, you know, is my path to get there. So it wouldn't be a problem at all for being all installed in the same VM, or, you know, we could be split into two with DevStack. But the other option would be to do what he was describing, which is multiple packages from the same repo, where Glance basically just has a extra plugin package that gets installed. So you end up with Glance and Glance _ Eventlet in the packages, and we just import from there instead of import from, you know, a place in Glance. Makes it a little bit more complicated probably for the package installers people, but same general idea.
Well, so what I was saying with that was, you can do Glance square bracket Eventlet square bracket, but that's requesting an optional dependency, and I don't think you can normally use that to install additional code from the same source. So I think that needs to be a second package that then gets referenced as a dependency when internally. But like from the API point of view, it looks like it's part of Glance's.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If I can't do the thing that I thought I could do, we could do that. Whereas the square bracket just it pulls in the Glance-Eventlet package, which is another package that gets generated from the same build system repo that Glance itself is, right? So, yeah. And it's
So the reason
possible
I'm
it's possible that we could just do that in Glance Store and put everything in Glance Store that Glance or Glance Store cares about, have one additional package, and then Glance bracket Eventlet just require, you know, it already required as Glance Store, but it could require Glance Store Eventlet and just use the same set of things. But anyway, were you back when I said the thing about co-installability?
Yes, I had just rejoined. So the other thing I was just wondering is, so for Oslo service right now, we use the extras to install the thing I can't pronounce that provides us the threading backend. Do we want to do the same thing and move Eventlet to be explicitly installed via extras Eventlet for Oslo and all of the other packages? So move it out of requirements.txt in general, and you then have to optionally opt into that.
But does Oslo actually require Eventlet?
It does in Oslo service, but not in most things.
Okay, I thought that most of them didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think PrivSep also directly has an implementation of allowing you to do multiple requests on the same thread using Eventlet. I don't know if that's optional, but I do remember that being added at some point in the past. So I suspect that most of the Oslo libraries, like Oslo log, etc., have no dependency on Eventlet. But I'm wondering, for the ones that do we want to put the Eventlet dependency into its own extra and then?
See, that might be a nice way to do it, and that way, you would also have all of the packages that still depend on Oslo service Eventlet mode would explicitly require that the square bracket version in their requirements, right? And that would provide you like a map to know who still requires Oslo service Eventlet mode, right? We could grep their requirements and figure out who that is.
So what that would mean for Nova, at least right now, is because we support both modes and we require both modes because of the compute agent, we would actually need to go Oslo service Cycula or whatever that thing is, comma Eventlet in our requirements file until we get to the point where we can run with just the threaded mode. And then you can still optionally install the Eventlet if you wanted to use the eventlet mode, but it just wouldn't be in our default requirements.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess I'm expecting them to move to that thing as their default, right? So it would be we require just Oslo service or Oslo service eventlet if you need the eventlet support. But either way. So yeah, I think that I think that it looks like the suggestion to do what we're trying to do, which is not that uncommon, is to just make it a separate package in the same setup config that just gets installed if you make that requirement. So it's not quite as tight as I thought it was going to be, but it's still the same effective, result. Anyway, it was just something that you probably all know that like my preference is to make big changes like this in a way that there's a relief valve to roll back to the old thing if you find out that the new thing is completely broken, until we have enough people that have run on the new thing to have proved it out, right? And this would give that switch where we could basically allow you to completely install a glance with no eventlet support whatsoever, no, not even eventlet adjacent, and then roll back to it by installing the extra package if you're like, oh crap, like I installed this, I rolled to production, and someone called me in the middle of the night and said, such and such is broken, so we're gonna roll back to the eventlet support, file a bug, and
So, sorry, I don't know if someone else has another question on this topic. I had one kind of for Gibby. In the Nova approach right now, when we set the environment variable to go threading mode, are we currently poisoning the import to eventlet, or was that only in our test code?
We cannot poison right now because we are importing common code that are shared between the compute, and compute is still needing eventlet. So we have the place where we should poison, but we cannot today.
Yeah, so I'm not necessarily sure that I want to have a poison in production code. I make it explode on an import like that because, transit library something gets added, it does something weird. But I was just kind of wondering where we were in our testing there, because do we in our unit test code poison it if it's explicitly using the threaded mode? I'm wondering if that's another way we can.
Not yet,
so
but maybe that's a plan.
So I mean, this is kind of an alternative to the poison, right? Where we just remove all of the ways of getting there, right? I hate to
it's different because if you don't even install eventlet, then in that environment where you run the unit test, nothing can use eventlet. If I poison, I can selectively poison that subset of the execution where I know it can be removed already, but not the whole thing.
I'm talking about the production poison. My idea of having a shim that we just don't install if you don't want eventlet support is an alternative to a production poisoning of the module. So I hate to even suggest this, but what if we were to put this shim, like I was just going to put this in glance because I wasn't going to bring it up here until Cyril forced my hand, but what if we had a common shim that people could use to do that, right? So that we don't just build the same shim in Nova and Glance. So I kind of want to keep it small, but
I'm not sure how much you need in that shim, because we've basically taken the approach of centralize anything that was using Eventlet into our utils module and have build the shim there between dispatching to the execution and all that kind of thing. I'm not sure if that pattern will work for everyone. Like, what's the shape of that shim that you're thinking of that you need?
Well, the reason I want to do it is because like if we move all of that stuff into that utils module, and that utils module tries to import Eventlet, and if it's importable makes those things available, then me being installed in an environment that has Eventlet means that code is reachable by the rest of my code, and I don't want that. So, we could go the environment variable route to gateway that thing. I just would rather be able to say, look, like I've installed Glance on my system and I grepped userlib Python and no Eventlet. The word Eventlet does not exist because I have not installed code that can even reach Eventlet. Like that was the point, and not like, well, I'm pretty sure it's not running Eventlet because I've set this environment variable and I'm pretty sure that it checked that before it did the import and like, all this stuff, right? That's why.
I think this is useful, but for Nova, it will be useful a bit later. So I would suggest to go with the glance only first.
Yeah.
Make it useful for your use case. And when Nova reaches the point that it can use it meaningfully, I mean meaningfully by if we use the stream, we can remove the Eventlet install. Then we can look at the shim and say if is it how far it is from our use case or not.
Cool.
I don't want to over-engineer your shim to something I cannot actually use today.
Good. I don't want to either. I just I also don't want to end up with too much proliferation of these extra things. But yeah, Glance is well positioned, I think, to like try this. So maybe we'll do this in short order and see what it looks like, and if it's a useful pattern, then whatever. As I mentioned, I wasn't even going to share this with you guys. I was trying to keep this a glance only nugget of gold, and Cyril just like wants to share. So is Cyril all the way under the bus now? I think I've pretty well.
Okay, thanks. That's a good idea. Does anybody else want to discuss particular things? I propose to keep this meeting short. Libby, go ahead.
Sorry, misclicked.
Okay, so if nobody want to add something, I propose to keep this meeting short as we have a room for a rest between other meetings.
I do have one topic, but it's something that's going to come up, I think, in each of the projects. And for projects like Nova, where we're supporting both foot cycle, do you have a topic on your agenda for when you're going to change the default? I know that some projects completed the event removal last cycle and just went to the hard switchover, etc. But for anyone who is doing this slightly more piecemeal, is that at least a topic you're discussing this cycle? And I guess, is that an indication what way the project's going to go?
Nova has. So my proposal there is to switch the default. In Gazpacho, switch the default of the services that was available in Flamingo to run with threading. So like one cycle where the default is still the old, and then the next cycle default is the new, while keeping the possibility to go back. This would mean that in Gazpacho, we change the default for Nova API, Nova Metadata API, and Nova Scheduler to run in threading mode, while they are keeping the possibility to run in Eventlet still.
Okay, part of the reason I asked that is we discussed that briefly on the watcher side as well, of when we should swap the default, and I kind of wanted to know how other teams are approaching that. I was kind of proposing something very similar, which is we moved 2 of the 3 agents we have last cycle. So I was suggesting that we would default the ones that we moved working to try to mode this cycle, and then the last one, depending on the stability, we would either default that as well, or we would leave that to the next cycle. Okay, that was all I had on that topic. So
Thanks. Okay, so I propose to close the call. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks. See you.
See you.